Hello, welcome back to my channel. Now today we are doing something for our networking students out there using Packet Tracer. Now the main thing we will be trying to do today is to develop a DNS server for in Packet Tracer. So you just go ahead and start the software. Now you should have a Packet Tracer software in order to follow through these steps. So you're just going to create a very simple DNS server. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, this will be the right time, and then hit that bell beside it just to get a notification anytime we upload. Okay, so to do that, we are going to go through our end devices, and then first of all select a first PC or an end device, first one. Then we are going to look for a central device. Here we are looking for a switch, so just put a switch in the middle. And the last thing we are going to do is to look for a server, which is also part of the end devices. So we just drag it to the playing field, or the field, just to make it much easier. Now we are just going to go ahead and assign an IP address to these devices. It's just like a label, so 192.168.1 and the last one being 5. Okay, then we'll do the same thing to the server too. Now usually it's more or less like a label, you're just labeling it so it can be easier to ping whenever you're ready to do so. Basically that's why we are doing this. So for the server you're just going to give it a default IP address of 192.168.1 and 1. Now we are going to connect with a copper straight through because they are unlike devices. So we just click on the first one, we click and select the switch also, and select the fast Ethernet one. Give it some few seconds to connect. We do the same thing, copper straight through from the switch to the server. Okay, so click on it and you select the first port. Now that we've created the connection, the next thing we are going to do is to make sure that these devices have been assigned an IP address. So we go ahead and double click, then we go to desktop, IP address or IP configuration, then we assign a static IP address to it. So this is where we assign the actual IP address, and it's 192.168. So 168.1.1. Okay, then we would also assign a DNS server IP. So you assign the same thing to it. So 192.168.1 and 1. Okay, so take note that this is the default IP address for the server and the DNS server. So we now go to the client and we assign an IP address to it also. So we go to the desktop and we click on IP configuration. We assign an IP address. If you remember from the first one, it was 192.168.1 and 5. So there's a dot replacing each one of them. Then we click on the subnets and it will be created. Now the DNS server here is going to be that of our server. So we're going to type 192.168.1 and 1. Yeah. So once we are done with this, we will check the connection to see if it works. So the next thing is for us to double click on the end device again, which is a desktop computer. Click on this, then go to the command prompt. We're going to use a very simple command called ping. We type ping, ping, then we ping the IP address, so 192.168.1.1. then click on enter. Now okay, so if it's successful, this is what happens. It sends empty packets and then you're able to receive some response back. That's when you get to know it's successful. So in this case it was. So now that we've been able to test the connection that it works perfectly, the next thing is for us to just go back to a web browser. Now here, this is where we're going to test whether the DNS server works. Okay, so here we are just going to type a very simple domain name here. Obviously it's not going to work, so www.mywebsite.com. So now that we type that, we click on go and you would see that there's nothing responsive here. The DNS hasn't been set yet. So what we are going to look at now is go to the server and set up the DNS on the server itself. So we would go to the DNS. First of all, we're going to make sure that it's on. So we turn it on. Then we are going to go to where we have the name. Then we will just type the domain name there. So www.mywebsite.com. So .com. And what should that point to? It should point to the DNS IP address, so 192.168.1.1. Now once you're done, you make sure that you add it to it. So that tells you can have several pages on this DNS server. So the main aim of a DNS is to translate an IP address into a domain name and vice versa. So that's what we just did here. So we now go to the client and we type the IP, the domain name, just to see whether it would bring something back or we'll get a response from our DNS server. And sure, we should, because we've now set it up. So we just type that domain and vice it. Now this is the default page you see, and you can now see that there's a response from our DNS server. So we would go to the server itself now, and we would go to services, and this time around HTTP. Now this is where you get to find the code for the web page we just saw. Now we are going to edit the index page, because that's the default home page for the website. So we are just going to do a very simple editing here where we edit the actual content. So here it's left up to you. For you to actually do this, you should have your basics in HTML. So if you're a web developer, cool. But if you're not, I would advise you just do some basics in HTML. But here is very simple. If you are familiar with HTML, it's just the tags, you just edit. So here we're just trying to do a few edits here, and once we're able to do that, whatever we customize here should be what we see on the DNS response whenever we type the domain name on the client, and this should be as easy as you're seeing it here. Again, you can see that I've actually mixed up the uppercase and lowercase. I forgot to type it out. But here, once you're done, you just save changes and you close it. Then you go back to your client, to the web browser now on desktop, and then we type the domain name again. So here the domain name was www.mywebsite.com, and we press go. Instead of us seeing the Cisco packet chooser, we now see the name or the customization we did, which is First IT Solutions. Welcome to our official website. It could be anything, but for the networking students, this is for you. And I think I was getting these queries a lot, so I decided to do this tutorial in packet chooser just to teach some of the students who are into Cisco networking how to set up a basic DNS server. And again, one thing I should mention is, since it's a DNS server, it's both ways. So you could use both the domain name or the IP address, and you will still get access to the page and all that. So yeah, so that's the tutorial for today. Kindly subscribe to this channel, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.